Good science, by definition, allows for more than one opinion. Otherwise, you merely have the will of one man, which is the basis of cult.
If it's not in frame, it doesn't exist.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore!
I'm funny how? I mean, funny like I'm a clown and a loser?
Where you been?
Drunk. Wendy? Darling? Light of my life.
What's your one purpose in life?
To explode, of course. I like death with sex. How about you, Casey? You like sex with death?
Yeah, so fuck up and die.
Probably not good.
Super Nazis, yeah. That's
because the dude in the park who gets attacked by the dog, he's a skinhead.
Yeah, he's definitely got You
know, he's got the boots and the red suspenders, and it's like,
oh yeah, for sure.
You know, that's the look, and but it's a different kind of thing because this movie. Okay, you introduce us.
I was just gonna let you finish your thought. This is the Cult of Cinema Knowledge podcast. That's the not super Nazis, Levi and Jordan. We're talking about Trainspotting today, and I'll say, so what's your...
Wait, did you say brain spotting?
Yeah.
Is this the zombie adaptation?
Dude, I would watch like
zombie parody?
It's like they look like they're on heroin, but they're just dead.
They're just dead. Yeah. Well, no. What it would be is it would just be
they're addicted to brains.
Short,
yeah.
And they would just the zombies would come into the flop house and be like, "Oh, nothing here, guys."
Yeah, they're already.
Oh
yeah. That's fun.
Yeah, there you go.
What were you saying?
Trainspotting, man.
Yeah,
No, I don't know. Is this movie... Okay, my God. There's like 1,000 threads here, and let's... I'm going to take them together and try to crochet a sweater here.
Yeah, that's good.
What time period was this movie supposed to be in?
The
late 80s?
I feel like it's just when it's filmed or like mid-80s, yeah. Because it easily could just be... No, okay, so if Iggy Pop's on tour and everything, and just based on the music conversations, I mean, it's probably...
Iggy Pop's like still on tour.
I know, that's the thing. It's like, I don't know.
No, I don't.
Mid-80s to mid-90s, it's hard to say. I just say it's like when it's made, because honestly, it's like, it seems like it could be a product. Like, it doesn't feel, watching it now, it doesn't feel like a quote-unquote period piece. It just feels like a movie that was made in the 90s and set in the 90s, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's hard to say because all the music is definitely 80s music, 70s
right.
and 80s music, so I don't know.
Yeah, and that kind of it's funny because normally that kind of dates a film.
Well, you know what?
This movie's really dated, but
it's definitely got to be when it came out because I had watched T2 as well, and T2 takes place in pretty much modern day, and there's a very specific time gap. It's been 20 years, they say, since the events of Trainspotting and T2, so it's like, and they have smartphones and stuff, so I don't know.
Oh, okay. So it is kind of just ambiguous, and like, I mean, I don't know, their use of...
I know this is the hot button topic of Trainspotting. Is what year is this?
Yeah, well, really,
that's the biggest takeaway, honestly, of the movie.
Is it explicit in the book? That's something
that's the question. I don't know. I would have to read the book.
I've never had the pleasure, and I should really read this book because this is a movie. This is a 5-star movie, so it's like spoiler alert. We love this movie, so. But yeah, it's my week to do the synopsis, and I didn't do one.
Dude, don't even sweat it. I haven't done one in weeks. I'm pathetic. Yeah. So no shame.
I'm gonna give you the quick synopsis that just kind of riffing because this is actually a pretty straightforward movie. It's
I mean it's plot. There's not like a ton of plot, you know what I mean?
No, it basically it's like Renton, Spud, Sick Boy, Bigby, and Tommy. They're all mates. They're all good friends in Edinburgh, and they are pretty much entrenched in the drug scene of that time period, and it's just pretty much their whole misadventures. And Renton, the main character, he tries to get himself out of this scene several times, and that's kind of his that's his whole deal is he's tried to get away from when these his group of mates, and he gets himself out and he goes to the UK, but then Sick Boy and Bigby follow him, and they get him back into it, entrenched in the drugs and the mishap, and then they get a drug score and they get a bunch of money, and then Renton steals it from him and takes off, but he leaves a little bit for Spud, which is a nice touch.
Spud never heard anyone, is what he says.
Spud's never heard anyone. Spud's definitely he's the romp throughout this whole thing. Like he's like the tramp. He just kind of like, it's like you're kind of rooting for Spud the most, even though they're all like, everyone here is so
Spud's despicable. The reason that this movie requires subtitles, though.
I love it.
Like it already needs subtitles, but like
it's amazing.
Unintelligible.
So when I was reading my fun facts, he wouldn't do it. Ewan Bremmer or whatever didn't want to go back and redo his dialogue, but everyone else did. Everyone else came back and they dubbed over a bunch of that monologue stuff, when Ewan McGregor's like doing the whole choose life. They come back and he like dub it slower and more like more clearly.
Their Scottish accent is so fucking heavy, but it's to foreign ears of mine, it is musical. Though it's got like a vibe I really like, I don't know. It's a fun accent, and it's just so heavy in this movie too, and it's because they're always fucked up and stuff, and just yammering. But I can't believe I understood a lot of this movie watching it the first couple, because now I watch everything with subtitles. You know what I mean, no matter what. Just because I'm going hard of hearing, and it's honestly I realize it just is better for overall comprehension. Oh, totally. You just catch more stuff. But back in the day when I first watched this movie. And the several times after. I mean, I've probably seen this movie like 10 times or something.
Oh, I've seen this at least 10, if not 20. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like back in the day in like junior high and high school, though, it's like I didn't watch this with subtitles. How the fuck did I understand? Like that interview scene was when Spud's doing the interview, and he's just like oh yeah, wee bit of speed will do just the ticket, huh? And he's just doing the interview.
He's just going.
That's insane. This is the first time that I feel like I'm like, oh, so what is he talking about? But it actually is like clicking, because you don't need to know what he's talking about. So that's what kind of makes it funnier, is that he's just like fucking.
Well, it's all reactions.
Yeah,
you can tell. But I think on this viewing, this is my first fully comprehensible viewing. I like watched it with subtitles, and I was just like, it's because originally you'd watch this movie because it's just fucking snappy and it's got so much energy, and like you don't need to know what they're saying because you're just watching like this visceral.
Well, yeah, and it's like every scene makes it's not. Yeah. It's just dudes like shooting the shit. I mean, there's so many scenes of just them talking about fucking 007 or whatever.
And that's something I'm like,
or music.
Is that in the book? Because I'm curious if that's in the book. I would hope it is, but it might not be because he's just like.
The book gives me like
very cinematic.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's interesting because it's like Mary. She didn't watch this with me. She's seen it before, but she was like, "No, that movie's so heavy," and I'm like, you know what? It's really not. I mean, it is. It is. Like it is in a way, but it's like I said, no, the energy of the movie is very, very upbeat. I mean, because like honestly, I was like kind of excited to watch this movie, but I was putting it off. Like I love it, and I was like, yeah, I'm down for a rewatch, but it like always, I just popped it on. I'm like, I'll pop it on. I'm printing some stuff back here on the 3D printer. Let me just like pop it on. And I popped it on, and immediately from just like Lust for Life, it's like doom, 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 doom. And I'm just like, oh yeah. Like,
that's literally right when it opens, and it's just his feet. Boom, boom, boom. And I'm like, baby, this is so like, oh man, the dopamine.
The beginning so good. It's just like the whole huge speech of them just running from the cops, and I love how it ties it together too. Yeah.
It's like that. The beginning is like the middle of the movie, and it's just like. Hey, dude, this is a really strong movie. It holds up, and I feel like I as I was watching it, I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to come into this without taking the like without having like nostalgia blinders, or just without coming into it and just being like, I already know I like this movie, so I wanted to kind of come into it with like kind of a critical lens.
Same. I was like, we're doing this for a film club. and a film podcast, and so it's like, I was like, I like this movie, but yeah, I felt like a little bit more critical, with like trying to watch it more critically, to be like pick at it a little bit, and it's like it's hard to do because it's so good.
There's nothing necessarily glaring that I wanted to talk about. And actually, the thing that I found that strengthened it even more this time, and then why I was saying it's like more comprehensible for me, is that every scene that happens before, like dude, the script is like flawless. It's like every scene they talk about before, and then the reaction. It's got that's how come I don't feel like this movie's that heavy. And it clearly it deals with like, baby death and
heavy
ODs
subject
and
material,
and it's like,
sure,
and like they're in the middle of like the AIDS epidemic, and it's like it is a very heavy movie, but it's edited, shot, and written kind of like a comedy. They'll do like,
well, and it is.
Do like
it's funny, dude. This movie
it sets you up for the punchline,
too.
And then the next scene is punctuated by what happened in the last scene, and that being negative or positive, it has such an impact, and it's like it flows so well. Like, dude, when he does the flip, when he's kind of, he's the government is making him take he's supposed to be sober, and he's only getting like 2 hits of methadone. And then he does that flip, and he lands inside.
And he's inside Mother Superior's.
And he's inside Mother Superior's. And then they do that whole bit where he's just like
at a restaurant. He's like, would you perhaps like a side of garlic bread? And he's like, no, right. just the intravenous injection of hard drugs, please.
Hard drugs, right. Just the usual. Like, he's like, what's on the menu? He's like, I just like the usual. It works so good for like, they know, it's like they're self-aware in like as characters, like,
well, it feels real.
What
like
they're doing is not it's not a high class thing to do.
No, they know that they're like scummy. They know that, and it's it makes the characters feel really real too. You know what I mean? Because it's like at the end of the day, that's kind of what this is about. I'm actually surprised that this movie's not like a biopic, because it feels like a biopic.
Well, it kind of. I mean, apparently
it's probably like semi-autobiographical.
I think it's probably just as biographical as autobiographical as Leaving Las Vegas.
That makes sense. You know what I mean? It's just like he or was it Irvine Welsh or whatever? I think who wrote it. It's like, I'm sure I know, I'm probably got it wrong, but I'm sure he's like, he wrote what he knew and grew up in that, and he's like was living in that culture, so it makes sense that it's like some of those stories probably happened. Because this movie, and from what I understand, the book is like very much a series of like almost like vignettes. And so this movie is like really free form, and it almost feels like a Scorsese type biopic, where it's just like, especially like how fast it is, and the cutting like is moving from one scene to the next, and there'll be like, like a 2-minute cutaway to just like explain someone's character that obviously has nothing to do with the plot, like Spud failing his interview on purpose so that he doesn't have to get keep getting, so he can get benefits and everything.
So he can keep getting like a government.
It's not like necessarily part of the plot, but it's important to their lifestyle. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly. Well, and how it's so cool because Renton will explain everything, and it's not like an exposition dump. He'll explain it to like either to the character or even just a narrative to you, but how he's explaining to Spud, like he's like, oh, it's a fine line for an interview, because if you get the job, then you have the job. If you do too good, you get the job, and you failed because you want to do good enough in the interview but not get the job, so that you can continue.
You want to make it seem like you want it.
Yeah, and it's just like, and he knows what will make Spud seem really, because like, Spud's like, he's like, I'm really good in interviews, and then but he's like, but I get nervous, sometimes what to say, and then he like takes that speed, and then he's just so, that cut, dude, is like, it's so comedic, but then like on the surface it's comedic, and then when you think about it deeper, it's so like it's sad, and it's like these guys like,
that's kind of this whole movie, man. And I honestly like where it's like it kind of takes you into like, because they even say the very beginning of the movie, it's like when people talk about heroin, they're always talking about the despair, but they don't talk about like the pleasure of it. And that's like how it starts, like after the opening a montage in the chase scene, and they're like, take the best orgasm you've ever had, times it by 1,000, you're still nowhere close. And it's all fun and games, and throughout I've noticed that a lot more this time. I noticed like the baby, especially through like the first 30 minutes of the movie, because they're like having these fun scenes and fun dialogue. They're talking about John Connery and all this, but the baby's just like in the background, and it's like if you don't stop and pay attention to that, that's like one of those things. Like this scene is like on its surface light, like they're just shooting heroin, but it's just like they're in this fucking den. Like this obviously could be shown in this really depressing light, but it's that undercurrent. And this movie does that so well, where it's like it's light, it's playful. There's this undercurrent of like shit is bad, and then it just like and then it just rears up, like, and it keeps doing that in this movie, like until Renton gets sick of it. It rears up when the baby dies, and then it's like then you think everything's okay again, and then they go to jail, and then Renton overdoses. You know what I mean? And
Right. Even
it keeps there's so much like they live in this lifestyle, and it's like it's like I feel like on your first watch you might be like, oh, they're glamorizing this drug life, because like that looks fun, and I'm like, that's
what I came into it kind of being like, I remember it just because
like that looks fun, like going palling around with my friends,
right. No,
but
that's
it's just being
kinda
young, you know.
I think so, right? I think that's what it captures, is that like captures that youth, that like, to steal a line, like lust for life. Dude.
Yeah,
It totally
early
is
20s drug
just-
addicts, you know what I mean? It's like
I mean, it feels like my group of friends that we used to hang out, and you know, we weren't doing hard substances.
we weren't doing
but
like
we were
heroin,
just-
you know.
No, but like it would just be like that, where it's like you had so much free time, and you would just like hang out together, and it'd just always be people, just like it would always be a constant rotation of other people coming through, but then you had like a core group of people in your life, and it's like it's so relatable, and it's so cool that they made it like super relatable, even though
It is,
these are
even
people
though-
who couldn't be farther away from like what
Even though, yeah, exactly. I wasn't, you know, a Scottish man in the early '90s, probably shooting up heroin, you know. So,
yeah.
but it feels like, I don't know, like this movie it draws you in. It's so well done, so well directed, and so well acted, especially by Ewan McGregor, obviously. Who I feel like I forget how young he is in this movie, man. He looks so
Dude, he's
young.
a baby, man. And it's like, it's so funny because this is when you think Ewan McGregor, what's your first role? And for me, this is the role.
It is the role I think of, but for some reason I always picture him like, oh, where's my phone? It's like modern day, and I don't even know why, because I don't even like these movies, but I always picture him in fucking Star Wars.
Oh, with his like braid.
In the prequels with his like cute beard, and he's like he's the young Obi-Wan.
Or maybe he doesn't have the braid. Maybe it's the other dude.
I think he maybe does that. See, I don't even know, but for some
I can't
reason
remember,
I'm like, that's who he is. He's just like a gay Jedi.
I can see that, but it's just like, I don't know. I guess this was like the first movie I remember him in.
Yeah.
It was like vivid. I was like, holy shit! Like such a good actor, such a good character, and then later getting into Danny Boyle's like film, ography.
Danny Boyle
Dude, he's so good. I'm like, it's so dumb because like
he's so varied too, which is what I think like you don't. That's why I don't think people talk about him very much, is because Quentin Tarantino. It's like all his movies are Quentin Tarantino movies.
His shtick or
Wes Anderson, all his movies are Wes Anderson movies. Danny Boyle, it's like all his movies like have things that are Danny Boyle-esque, but it's like he does totally different genres, and he does them in totally different ways a lot of the time. I would say like only his more recent movies feel like Danny Boyle movies, but it's just like
Wait, he directed Steve Jobs? Sorry, I'm
Yeah.
going through.
Yeah.
What the fuck, dude? No, this is get out of here. So I stopped. Wow, I really stopped. I stopped investing my life into him after 127 hours. 2010. He did a Frankenstein movie.
Did he?
And Steve Jobs. Okay, well, anyhow,
I never watched Steve Jobs, but I watched. I think his last movie was Yesterday, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That one was interesting. It was fun. It was an interesting concept, honestly, because when he was popular the most, and we talked about this in the past, and I should rewatch this movie because I remember we went and saw it in theaters. I'm pretty sure you were with me. We went and saw Slumdog Millionaire because we were excited because we like Danny Boyle.
Because it was right after Sunshine too. Because Sunshine was like Sunshine. I don't know.
At this point,
Danny Boyle's my favorite movie, but
we
it's
were
probably
coming
20
off.
years later that Sunshine's
Literally,
my
he's
favorite
on
too.
a run of like. I mean, other than the beach, but he's on a run of like.
Even
the beach
then,
is fine.
The beach is fucking cool.
Yeah,
okay, I don't
but
care. Come
Shallow
back.
Grave to Trainspotting, The Beach, 28 Days Later, and Sunshine, like kind of is where we're at with it. And then Slumdog Millionaire, we saw in theaters. I remember being like, Yeah, that was cool. Like, it was filmed really interestingly, but I think it was like one of his weaker movies. But then it got like super popular and won all the Oscars. And I'm like, that's fine. But it made me like it less, just because I'm like, it's fine. And it's like,
I know. We're hipsters.
I know, it's true.
we liked Danny Boyle
Before it was cool. Yeah, I'm like, go back and watch his good films, you know? Like,
Yeah, right.
nobody
I liked
ever
him in the
watches
90s.
Shallow Grave, you know?
Yeah.
But it's just funny. I do need to rewatch that movie, but this movie, I don't know. It's hard to say because every time I watch one of his movies, because we watched 28 Days Later in October, and every time I watch one of his movies, it's like I'm not always like, oh, this is a Danny Boyle movie. I'm just like, this is just a good fucking movie, and it's so well made. Because 28 Days Later and this are way different, but it's just like, and you could see his fingerprints on it, sure, but
I think that's what it is. It's like because it's when I was getting into these films, and Danny Boyle especially, there were shots that I expected. I was like waiting for him to do something unique with the camera, because that's it. Like Shallow Grave, he's got like some phenomenal shots through like the floor or through the ceiling and stuff, and it's like he shoots like when they're at the grave site. That's so sick. It's so stylized. It's like, it's beautiful, dude. Shallow Grave's amazing. Trainspotting has got like clearly like one of the most epic shots of all time that's talked about forever, is when he ODs and goes into the carpet, and it's just like, it's so surreal, and it's such a small touch, but it's so memorable.
good.
It's so
impactful.
impactful.
It's so
dude.
memorable,
It's so
and that's
good.
the thing too. It's like, there's so many things about this movie that are so well constructed, and I think that's another point you bring up about like, there's a certain level of surrealness baked into the actual, like, it's not like,
I mean, him
the
going to the toilet, I guess, is
exactly.
probably the most iconic, but it's
Well,
still,
I mean,
just
it's
like,
because it happens so early in the movie. People are like,
yeah, right.
Whoa.
And it's so that is a dude. I remember watching, or like when I watched it when I was younger, I thought like, fuck yeah, dude. Like, I'm just like, this is so cool. It's like so gross and cool. And now watching it, I'm like, God, this is like, it's uneasy how gross it is. Like, it's so, when he
really
goes to that
gross.
toilet, dude, I know it's fake, but like really this time, it's just like, it's so like the water's so gray and he's splashing around it.
What I like
I was like,
about
ew.
that I noticed this
love it.
time is it's so gross, but it's just like, I like, and this is obviously part of the directing and the part of Ewan McGregor's performance, but it's just like how much, and the writing, but like how much of an addict Renton is, because it's like you're following him, and he is like, you know, he's like, I've even like the quote unquote inciting incident is like him being like, I've even tried to kick it a couple times, and then he stands up from the floor and is like, I'm off the skag, you know,
yeah.
and then obviously he goes and gets the methadone up his butt and everything, but like, there's so many, like, there's not even a hesitation. And that's like, it brings you so well into like his mindset as a protagonist and his life, like living in this like scummy fucking, going around to these like really shady places, like scoring heroin and stuff. Like that he's like in this toilet. It's super surreal, but it's just like, there's no hesitation. He immediately goes in there.
He does, and that is true. I thought there was more contemplation, but in this, he just
No,
straight
it's
up
because
dips,
that's
and
his
he
drugs,
just
man,
dips.
and that's what you got to do. And later, and like, there's so many like little scenes like that. I noticed more on this rewatch where I'm just
dude,
like,
I love that. I love when he gets the suppositories and he puts them up his ass, and then he's looking at his friend, and he's like, I should have. He's like, for what good they did
for
me,
all
I
the
should have
good
shoved
they
them up my
did,
ass.
shoved up my ass.
It's such a good line.
But later, when the baby dies, which is also another like really memorable scene for a lot of people, because it's like super brutal.
So I remember the baby animatronic and being like, oh man, that's so cheesy. But the baby in the crib is brutal, dude. I don't remember it when I was younger. I just kind of like, oh yeah, dead baby. But now watching it this time, I'm like,
I have a 4-month-old son,
dude.
And it like, that is my worst nightmare. Like I'm I'm watching it, but like luckily I know,
well,
I'm not
strung out on heroin.
Exactly, exactly. So, but I'm watching it, I'm just like, God damn. But that scene right after that, where they immediately deal with that problem by getting all fucked up and high,
dude, and then him,
and Renton's like,
being like,
and then it's like, you know, I was gonna cook her up a shot, but after I did my own, but that went without saying. And
that went without saying, dude.
That's
such a
like
big line.
such a
It's
good
so
but small, like it's so subtle, but it's just like so impactful. Where it's just like, at the end of the day, my need comes over my my empathy for your dead child.
But then there's so great moments where like that happens, and you're like, oh my god, this is the addiction. It's almost kind of like, it's like, for as fun and as community based as it seems, for like how tight knit this group seems, you know that when he's using, he's a trash person. He's really greedy,
and that's what they say
really
too.
selfish.
There's like nothing matters when you have a truly sincere junk habit.
Right.
You know, it's like,
Yeah.
as long as you're truly sincere about it, like nothing else
But
matters, and that's
later,
great.
Later, when he meets Tommy, and Tommy's deep into
And he
his-
gets
in his habit,
Tommy into it.
and he- dude,
That's
and he
another.
gives-
This movie's like, that's why.
God,
That's
yeah,
what stuck
it-
with Mary, and so I understand why she's like, this movie's so heavy. It's like dead babies, going to jail, overdosing, fucking getting your
Right,
cool friend who never,
Yeah.
and you fucked him up by stealing his sex tape. That was probably
Right,
the
I know,
final
I know.
straw, you know.
Well,
And
honestly, yeah. I mean, no, I do, and I love that too. Tommy was like, "Oh, the tape started it," but he's like, Tommy was also like, "It's a lot of other shit too," and it's just like, it's like that depression that he has, and then it's like, that is where like, that's like, there's no such thing as peer pressure. It's never existed. It's like your friends go.
he does
"Hey, I wanna
say,
try
"I'm an
this,"
adult. I'm
and-
an adult. I can decide for myself," you know.
And it's like, and that's such a fucking head trip too, because like Renton's like strung out, but dude, when he gives him that $20 or whatever, oh man, that hurt.
Later,
That,
he's just
that's
like,
a
"Let me
really
borrow
hard part.
some." Mm-hmm. And
Yeah,
it's like he
He
knows.
gives it to him, and that's even that right there is like, it's so subtle, but it's like, that's the guilt that he feels. It's like, he's like, I got him hooked, or at least, you know, I was part of it, and then he's like, I'm gonna give him some money and try to pay him off, but it doesn't make me feel any better. And like, because later when he gets clean, and it's like, you know, he has everything, all the visions that he sees and stuff. I love that. I love like.
I know, and
showing
it's like he
him
gets
clean.
clean so many times, and it's just like, you really feel
he's-
his struggle, and it's like,
Yeah.
that's
And he's
what's-
got it down to such a science too. When he's going through, like, that's
the first
that's a
time
memorable-
when
that's
he's
such a
like
memorable scene.
10 cans of tomato soup,
8
cans of cream of mushroom for consumption cold, you know.
cold, right, yeah, 3 buckets, yeah, dude, it's just so good that like the listicle that he has,
the sick boy method.
yeah. Oh yeah, I love that. And Sick Boy gets clean too, just to spite him.
That's so funny. God, I forgot
Yeah,
about that. When he's
yeah.
just like, he got clean at the same time just to downgrade his own struggle.
Yeah, exactly.
They just
That's
like
so
the way
good.
they walk up to each other in the wide shot at the park. They just like, and like Sick Boy's got the briefcase, like, hello, sober friend. Yes, I too am your sober friend. Let's engage in some activities that are not shooting up heroin. And so they just like smoke cigarettes and they spy on people with a fucking pellet gun and shoot a dog, which is fun. And then talk about music. It's funny because they talk about they're like ripping on Lou Reed, and like 4 songs in this movie are Lou Reed songs.
Right.
Nah, a couple of them at least, but
The big one.
it's funny.
ODC.
It's something this movie does really well, and I think is impactful, is because it's like, it does start, and I wish, like, some drug movies do this, but I feel like this movie does it best, and that's what the theme is of the month, you know, is that it's just like, it starts out fun, and then it keeps hitting you with these like real heavy things, but it's like, you know, it's playful and it's fun, and then it's just like, you really start to feel with Renton, you're like empathizing, but as the audience, they do such a good job of like putting you in that situation where it's like, man, this is not fun anymore. Like, my friends that were my quote unquote friends are now, you know, Begbie's living with me and he's being a piece of shit, and Sick Boy's just taking advantage, and it gets to the point like, I'm scared they're going to steal my passport. Like, he's like, and how many times have I been, you know, on again, off again, on heroin? And he's just like, seeing him slowly make his decision. And I wrote, this is like a coming of age movie, but it's not like a typical one. But for him, of like,
It totally is.
well, because it's the way it's done is so gradual about his, like, you know, it's not like one big moment that like causes him to like, I need to change my life and I need to like, quote unquote, grow up and choose life and choose a starter car and blah blah blah. You know what I mean? It's like, he's like, I need to, like, this is not working even based on my own philosophy. But like, that's the entire movie, is like, it's that journey to make that decision. And then he's just like, you know what? When he sees the opportunity, because it's funny, like, this movie doesn't have like such a crazy plot, and then like the big plot point at the end doesn't even come until like the last 30 minutes, the drug deal. And so the opportunity pops up, and he's just like,
On that, I think
you know what?
that's
Fuck
too.
it.
It's just
You know what I mean?
opportunity.
It comes up, and he's like, you know what? I see it. I'm gonna fucking take it, and even if I'm gonna get possibly murdered for it. You know, like
I know. Well, and see, and this now is a great segue because Renton at the end he's like I would do it. I would have done it to I did it to everybody because they would have done it to me.
Yeah, he said
and
your friends, when you do it so much, your friends are just a different class of victim.
Right.
Which I thought was a really good line,
dude,
too.
It's such a, that's so fucking good. And it's like, and it's so real. And he gets away with it essentially. But now fast forward, because T2, they talk about the other T2, not the T2 that
I know. I know you're making quite a weird jump there. Yeah, and T2, the T800 like shows up. And
yeah, it comes in. Yeah, there's the atom bomb and everything. But it's like there's like, you know, that is funny that it is T2. But anyways, I have not seen that movie yet, and you had watched it without super spoiling it. It does take place like 20 whatever. 20
yeah, it's like 20 years later or whatever.
It's supposed to be kind of like, yeah, like you said, just chronological for what we're experiencing now in our life. So how do you feel about it now that you've grown up with the movie? You know, I'm seeing it for the first time.
I shouldn't have watched them back to back, honestly, because it's
really?
like
Okay.
T2, because it's like because the first Trainspotting was so fresh in my mind, I didn't feel, because like T2, they're older, they're like in their 40s, and they're slightly reminiscent about their good old days, but then that's a big point of like, oh, but yeah, but that's rose-colored glasses, you know what I mean? It was not all good. So it's really good, and honestly, Danny Boyle's doing some really fucking crazy stuff in that movie. Like from a filmmaking standpoint, it's pretty nutty. It's worth watching. But the first half, I was really into it because I thought it was going to really be something different, and then it kind of ended up kind of not. I feel like not knowing what I wanted to do, but it was still good to watch those characters. But like, you know, I don't know. It
wasn't a good back to back, huh?
It's worth a watch, but I do feel like, because I literally was just like waiting for my 3D print to go, and I'm like, I still got like an hour. I'll just start T2 since I'm right here. I'll just start it. I have it right here. So, and it was really good. And it's like some of the characters, like I feel like they did Renton's character kind of dirty, but it's like they did Spud's character good, but they didn't have enough of him. I don't know.
Well, it's interesting because it's based off of
the book
Irving
too. It
Welsh,
makes sense.
Which sequel,
Well,
and it's like I'm pretty sure it's written. It's like the same. It's just that's what's kind of interesting is like it's kind of cool that they did that. Like now they're adults. These dudes who like Danny Boyle, you know, and then it was John Hodge, who wrote the screenplay for Trainspotting, did this screenplay for the second one, and so it's just like it's kind of cool to like I need to watch it now.
You
just
should.
For that fact.
You should definitely watch it. It's definitely worth a watch, especially if you like the first one. I just didn't
Is Kelly MacDonald in it? The girl who plays Diane.
Briefly.
Is she? Oh, just briefly. Okay,
Yeah,
that's cool. I figured she wouldn't be a bigger.
She's in it a bit.
But
she's in it a little bit.
Dude,
but,
I love. Oh my god, her. I like her in this.
It's
movie.
good. I just like my biggest like complaint without spoiling anything is it feels like, so it takes place 20 years after the events of the first film, but it feels like it could have taken place like a year. Like that's how little has really changed. Like you feel like these characters are gonna have 20 years of like all this history in retrospect, but it's just like, and they've been basically doing the same thing for 20 years, and that's just who they are now. You know what I mean? And Begbie's in prison and all this, and but it's still really worth a watch. But yeah, check it out because it does like kind of like it is interesting to see like, oh, how are they gonna react to Renton and after all this. Him stealing their money, and it's like that's obviously a big point, a big contention of all their relationships together. But I wish there were some things this time watching it. I was like, there are some things I wish they like. I was like, oh, maybe they'll tie this up in the sequel a little bit. It's like because the Diane storyline kind of drops off, but that's life. You know what I mean? No, like right. That's not a complaint.
She goes to school, and like they weren't. And that's what I love about it too. Is like she was not. Even
she wasn't part of the circle. That was just like a peripheral type thing.
And she even was like, she's like, I'm invested in this because I'm just using you for entertainment myself. Like, it's like she wasn't like
she's slumming.
She wasn't just like loving. She didn't fall in love with him.
Yeah.
You know, she was pretty confident in herself, and she's
Well,
like, I'm going to school.
And honestly, that's what I liked about the second one is like it wasn't like, you know, the scene where they have together. It's like, yeah, they had a moment and they have like a little bit of a history, but it's not like, oh, let's rekindle because we had like such a flame, you know.
Like, yeah. Dude, I love when they scrump and then she's like, dude, it's so great. It's like immediately she's like, you can't sleep in here. You got to be quiet.
Honestly,
go out in the hall or leave. Go to your
and
house.
he's out in the hole and he's like, Jesus Christ, and then he pulls the condom off his dick.
He's got the condom on his dick still, dude. It's so good. And it's just like, and then he stays, and I love he's like, are you
that whole
flatmates?
sequence is so funny, man. Like,
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It's like so funny, but then it's like when he says that, and I just love that nobody beats him over the head with it, where they're like, we're her parents. Like, it's like they just kind of laugh and they're like, that's a good one. You know, that's it. When he's like, are you the flatmates? Like,
and it's so concise because it starts in the club scene. Well, it starts with like him still in the sex tape. That's what I'm saying. It's all like one scene really follows into another, so it's really easy to follow, even though the movie feels kind of chaotic. But it's like it's a really
energetic
easy.
Is what I like. It just
one scene really leads to the next scene quite well. Yeah. It's like, you know, Begbie does a thing, and then he's like, "Well, Tommy told me the truth about it." And then he's hanging out with Tommy, and then he steals the sex tape, and he watches the sex tape, and he's like, "I need to meet women because I'm like not on heroin anymore, so I'm horny." Goes to the club.
I love how he explains that too. He's just like, you know.
It was in that moment I realized I was missing something.
Yeah.
Well, and that scene like Spud, and it's like it felt very like this movie felt very like a lot of the cinematography felt. Very like Scorsese-esque, especially with the editing. But that nightclub scene definitely felt like an homage to Kubrick.
It 100% is.
It is. It has to because it definitely is like
the writing is the same writing in the Notebook.
Okay.
It's the same.
That
it's
makes
the same
sense.
words too.
Literally. Okay. I was like, this is like exactly like Clockwork Orange, but they're just like listening to techno.
There were like. No, it was Clockwork Orange was one of the homework movies they had to watch for this film.
Good. Yeah, that's fun.
Because it's like it totally they are a group. They basically are the like, well, oh my god, what are they called?
The Droogs and everything or whatever.
Yeah, those guys. It was like that gang. They essentially just are that, but not as surreal. It's more set in a grounded reality.
It's true.
But they are. It's literally just like them, and it's so great because it's like it is watching at this time when they come in and they push in, and then I love how there's like subtitles built into the movie.
Well, because the music, they're at the club and they're like shouting to each other, and you can barely hear them.
It's so perfect.
It's great.
It's such a good, such a small touch, but like, God, that's so strong.
Well,
filmmaking.
That's such good directing because it's like a lesser director would be like, okay, we get a wide shot, then maybe we come in and it's like, you know, we got over the shoulder of them talking, and you know, we mix the audio so we can hear them. Right. But this one is just like basically one zoom, like one dolly shot. And it's like super wide angle lens, and it's like pumping music with like the subtitles. And it's cutting back and forth between the girls in the bathroom, and they're all talking about each other and their relationships. And I love what are you guys talking about? Football. You? Shopping.
It is good. No, when that happened, I'm like, it's so delivered so well. Like it's that
whole scene, so man. It's like it made me feel like I'm like, man, I'm 20 something and I'm at the club, and it's like, you know, I'm feeling kind of sexy and like everything's good. And like Renton runs out to the girl and runs out to Diane, and she's like, oh, well, let me guess, you've never tried this, and like does her whole speech. It's like, but don't us girls just love that? And then she just like gets in the cab and leaves the door open, and it's just that whole scene. And then like literally ending, like it feels like I got laid because it ends with the climax where it's like intercut with the soccer scene, and it's just like goal, and he scores. I've never seen such a penetrating score. Literally, as they're all banging, and then Spud's too drunk to fuck, and then it wakes up with him shit in the bed, which is great.
I know, which is good. And that actually, I was like, oh, that scene is so gross. There's so much. It's funny. It's like for all the like poop humor in this, it's not juvenile at all. It's pretty like
weirdly.
It's like so real. Like everything about it. That's what's so great. It's like it's so funny. You can watch this two different ways. It is a straight up comedy, or it's like a harrowing, depressing cultural shift.
I could not handle fucking Begbie this time. I never can. Like he's one you like love to hate, but he's such a wild card like villain.
Dude, he's so vicious, and
he's a full blown psychopath, man. He's a full blown psychopath.
I never thought of it, and then I was reading like some of the trivia stuff, and Robert Carlyle, whatever, Carly,
who's in?
Anyways,
Isn't he? He's the main guy, and or at least for some of it in 28 Weeks Later. That's what I was recognizing.
Right.
Which is funny
because
because
or whatever.
Danny Boyle didn't do that one, but he was. I think
No,
he was
but
involved in a way, but.
Well, I mean, I'm sure because I thought Danny Boyle was going to do 28 because he's doing 28 months. But anyways,
is he?
Yeah.
I'll believe it when I fucking see it.
Well, I guess that's true. Yeah. This was like, yeah. Anyways.
Dude, Robert Carlyle is in fucking. He's the bad guy in Ravenous. Sorry, I was like trying to remember what else I remember him from. God, Ravenous fucking rules. You should watch Ravenous. Anyway, I put it on one of the polls.
I've already seen it. It sounds familiar, but
we talked about it because I put it on one of the Western polls, the first of the month.
Oh no, I haven't seen it. Anyways, okay, let me just finish the stupid fucking thing.
About the Wendigo.
He said, oh yeah. In interview, he said that he was playing it as like a closeted homosexual, and I totally like after reading that I was like, oh my god, it's so apparent. It works so well for his character.
That makes sense.
Dude, I love how like. I love how violent he is. It's so
well,
good.
and it's interesting because it's like when he's subdued,
so
like
insecure.
when he that makes sense a lot because you do kind of feel that because it's like when he is like meets that trans woman at the bar, and it's like making out with her in the car and everything, and then later he freaks out about it, and then he like has all his bottled rage about it, and he like totally unleashes on some random guy just for looking at him wrong at the bar and like stabs him.
Dude, yeah.
And so it makes sense because
that beating is so brutal.
So
dude.
I forgot how many of those
God.
scenes were brutal in general.
When he like jabs him with the cup and it just
right in the face. Just,
oh my god! And then he was about to murder him too, dude. That was bonkers.
I know.
Anyways,
well, that was another moment you see
yeah.
from Renton's perspective because Spud runs in there.
Yeah.
Spud gets cut and he's like, Bigby's like full on fucking blood rage mode. He's like, get out of my way. And Renton's over there just at the table. The shot of him, just his reaction being like. I gotta get out of here, man. Like I can't keep
and he's
doing
like
this.
looking at the money. Yeah, dude.
It's like someone's gonna get killed, and like this is just not worth it, man. Like, and that's why he's like, gives his money to Spud though, because Sick Boy is, it's like his best friend, but also like a rival, and it's such a scammer. The fact that he like,
and I think they're best
opening
friends.
up, he basically becomes a pimp, though. Like he's skeezier
right.
though. Sick Boy's so much skeezier.
No, right, and I think that's probably what it is. He just like because Spud is like the little brother, where I guess Tommy might be kind of the little brother, but then Tommy,
Well, in the sequel, it is established that they're all childhood friends, like since they were kids.
That's what I would assume.
But it does feel like
they.
they go back at least, other than Begbie. But they even say that like they knew Begbie since they were kids, but he was older because he got held back.
Oh, okay.
Which I feel like is just kind of a fun detail just for their characters, all together.
And Begbie has so much just rage that I can see him not excelling, but
no.
Right. Damn. God, I really want to watch the sequel now.
Well, that makes sense now too. If all his he's got enough homophobic things to buy that. But it's just like his overcompensating, trying to be a tough guy all the time, is like built in his system. I actually wish they touched on that in the sequel, which they don't really. But
really, and it's in the movie. In the movie, he's smaller and a lot more wiry. But I think he plays that aggression so well. And in the book, apparently he's like a big macho
guy,
more intimidating, if you will, guy. Because that's what even Victoria was like. She was watching this with us, and she's like. God, Bigby's such a like. She's like anyone in that bar could probably take him, but I'm like he's so aggressive constantly. There's no reasoning with him that you couldn't fight him. Like, and even then he would still persevere because when he starts that bar fight, it's like he gets hit, but he just keeps going. I don't know.
Right.
He definitely has that aggression.
So anyway, did Travis call us this time? Do you know or?
No,
unfortunately that's not. Okay. I just wanted to. Did
I tell you why? If Travis, if you're listening to this, we heart you and we miss you.
Yes.
But happy gaming. he got a PS5, and I told him to download Hunt. So
Yeah.
now you gotta,
Dude,
you
I've
gotta tell him
I've
to download
infected
Hunt.
everyone with the Hunt Showdown bug.
Yeah, dude.
It's about
You gotta
time
download-
but now it's like you can only play with 3 people, but now I at least have always people to play with. I'll be playing a lot because the new event literally starts tomorrow. So I'm going to be fucking editing this tonight, hopefully, or in the morning so that I can start playing tomorrow during my kid's nap.
Well, if there's a new event tomorrow, I might boot it up. I don't go to work till
Yeah.
like 11, but
Yeah, buddy.
that's just so funny because Travis just bought a PS5, so he's been too busy gaming hard.
I've been gaming like a loon.
Yeah, how much Mountain Dew have you drank, Travis?
That's okay. He did say he watched a lot of movies in October, and that
Yeah.
for a lot of people that's a bunch. That's a buttload.
We just you're in our thoughts and prayers.
Yes,
We
yes,
haven't
yes,
got you back.
yes, indeed. So, let me see if there's any Reddits. I actually don't know if there is, other than maybe there's 1 or 2. But in the meantime, do you got a money minute?
I do. So this movie had quite the roller coaster ride. It's 1.5 euros or pounds or
Whatever the fuck that means.
Whatever that non-American denomination is.
That piece of shit currency.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, everyone's great. This is a pretty. So anyways, let me explain real quick. 1.5 million, and it grossed like 48 million. Which actually I think was like, or something like American. It's funny. It's like the Box Office Mojo is where I find a lot of this. It's in like European currency for the production, and then it's in like American currency, which was 48 million, but then that's like around like 72 million pounds. Anyways, it grossed a lot. It was the highest grossing British film of 1996.
Huh.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it had one of the highest distribution budgets because a really cool Polygram. Does that sound familiar? Polygram studio production studios. They kicked out a fuck ton of stuff. Like they did a lot of movies, and they were a huge company. And then they got bought in like 98, and then they got dissolved in like 99.
Huh.
And so it's kind of crazy. They had a huge run. They did this. So they did American Werewolf in London. That's probably where we saw them.
Yeah,
Like 4 Weddings
okay.
and a
Because I was gonna feel like
Funeral.
I did see something like that. Sounds familiar, and that makes sense
you would-
because
you
we
would
just watched
notice-
American Werewolf in London.
Right, you'd recognize the emblem or their symbol kind of looks like the like Rolls Royce symbol a little bit. It's like
Okay.
a guy
Well,
with
that makes
wings
sense
pointing.
with
But
this
anyways,
movie because it's like this movie.
Right.
I mean, obviously, I
But
was
they-
a small
they
child
gave
when
them-
it came out, but when I was aware of it, it felt like I had a big international presence.
It was huge. They had almost $1 million for their budget. So like for distribution. So it's like Polygram was like, we believe in
Remind
you
me the
because
budget again, real quick.
So 1.5 million in euros or
Oh,
pounds,
okay.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then the same company, a European company, matched that or almost matched that with like 890,000
Nice.
for distribution alone.
That's awesome.
Thus, they saw the movie and they were just like, holy shit, this has like so much potential. They believed in it, and so they blew it out. And so it's pretty dope. I'm like that explains. I think that definitely helped them in this, and then I think Miramax was the one that did it.
Yeah, Miramax for
US,
sure was
right. It is Miramax.
Yeah, Miramax
right?
for sure.
And then Miramax was like they were slamming out like Pulp
Miramax
Fiction
was
Miramax. The 90s Miramax.
Late
was,
90s, early 2000s Miramax, dude. Forget about it.
Miramax was giving out all the like indie and
All
foreign
of
and
it,
just
Quentin Tarantino, Kevin Smith, that was all Miramax. I know it's funny because it's weird that it's just like such humble beginnings that this seems like this movie was a sensation because it's so good. But I got my poster right here and it says from the makers of Shallow Grave, and it's like I'm like sad because nobody knows Shallow Grave.
Nobody's ever seen Shallow Grave. Like, and Shallow Grave is like, I would argue just as good.
I don't know if it's as good, but that's another. That's Ewan McGregor also.
Right, and that's the whole reason he's in this.
Yeah, and it's
they
but Shallow Grave. I tried to put it on like the thriller month because God, that movie is The movie rules.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I just watching this, I'm like, man, Danny Boyle, because like we said at the beginning, dude, it's like 28 Days Later, and it's like I don't know what my favorite movie is by him because I watched this and I'm like, damn, that's really high up there. It's probably 28 Days Later, but
to find a reason to watch Sunshine for the podcast because
Sunshine was our movie, man.
We were obsessed with Sunshine when it came out.
Holy crap!
Because it's so good. I mean, some people are wonky about it, but I was talking with Landon, and I don't know if he listens to this, but shout out if he does. And but he, he's a patron, so maybe.
You're right. He's one of our lovely.
But he was talking about how he just finished Peaky Blinders, and he's like obsessed with Cillian Murphy. And I'm like, dude, Cillian Murphy's like my crush, one of my crushes. And I was like, you need to watch Sunshine. He'd never heard of it. So I put it on his radar. And I'm like, please watch Sunshine. What? So now I want to watch it for the film club so that I have more of a reason to like to manipulate him into what to force to peer pressure him into dude, watch it. Watch Sunshine.
I always say Sunshine was like it kind of feels like my Alien. Like it gives me that like it's like epic and beautiful and like kind of gross at times and
and he does Danny Boyle, he does this thing. I think if there's one thing he does that I think like is always like a fingerprint in his movies is he'll end a cut on a freeze frame. Like to show like he'll end it on like not just in the way that like a Scorsese does that too, especially with his montages. They'll freeze frame and then like have a voiceover, but like this one it's like something intense will happen and it'll be like freeze frame for a couple seconds and then another quick shot and then freeze frame and like Sunshine does that a lot and this movie does it quite a bit too. I was curious about that budget and that sounds about right because I don't know what they shot this on but it looks like maybe 16 millimeter a lot of the times is what it looks like. But the one thing I noticed this time is a lot of the shots the camera is shaking like crazy. And especially the wide shots. And I know it's just because they probably got some shit. And I was literally like, oh, this is probably some cheap 16 millimeter camera. And it's just like, and they're trying to like keep it so steady. And it's like, they can't because it's just like film is just pumping through this thing. And it's definitely like.
There's some charm to that though.
There really is though. I mean, honestly.
That's where
that's not a criticism. I was just like.
No, but it is that if I was to critique this film, it would just be. It's almost like it would be great to see this in a remaster. I wonder if it's ever going to get.
I don't know. See, that's the thing. I think what they lacked in like certain like they did their surreal shots, but they did it by not doing crazy things with the cinematography, but like by building practical effects, like they shot in a pool and like him going in there and then like the sinking down into the ground like with the hydraulics or whatever. It's like they built all that, and I feel like that kind of adds to it. But what they don't have, like the composition of this movie is so good. There's so many good shots that are just framed so good. Just like Renton, like the one shot I always think of that I really love, and it's just so simple, but it's Renton's just like strung out, and he's sitting on the chair or whatever, and the chair's just like on the ground. And his legs are like totally just like all across the ground and in the forefront of the frame, but he's framed perfectly. Just I don't know. It's just the way the composition of this is just really strong a lot of the time.
His match cuts are out of this world, dude. When he gets hit in the head with the soccer ball, and he falls back, and he's in the den, dude.
Yeah, buddy.
So good.
Anyway, let's see. I got like a couple. I got one or two right. So, El Funkio Junkio. That's fun. Thank you. Thanks for commenting. Says, great movie. Has a lot of funny moments and some dark ones. Begbie is such a great character, although a horrible person. The scene where he tosses his glass behind him and then starts a bar fight. Just pure psycho who wants to always fight and hurt people. Haven't caught the second one yet, but I've been wanting to. Harder now since me and my friends started a movie podcast. Hey, we always have stuff lined up to watch, so barely have any time to watch anything else. But maybe I'll try and sneak the second one into an episode. Yeah, do it, buddy.
Awesome,
speaking of movie podcasts.
Hey, maybe we'll do a crossover episode.
What's it called? Hold on, let me scroll in.
Did he comment?
I'll shout him out. You know what I mean? Yeah, the Cinema Store podcast. I don't know
Cool.
this guy, but
we never listened to an episode. Let's hope that it's all. Let's hope
I
he's
know.
chill.
talking about Nazis earlier.
I know,
Hopefully it's not like.
hopefully he's not like. Yeah, he's
I'm
just
sure. Either
Like, he's
way,
following the.
he's commented on our podcast and our film club,
Yes.
and I do appreciate that. And is obviously a fellow cinema lover, so that's all we know. But he did put his name out there, so whatever. But we're not. I don't know enough yet. So, but
On
yeah.
the surface, we appreciate you.
Hey
So,
man, but if you
we'll-
listen to
we'll-
this podcast, fucking get with us. Maybe I'll listen to your podcast. I'll check it out.
Yeah, I'm 100%. I'm gonna get off this and I will put it on my Spotify.
Yep. So
Thank you.
good stuff. Let me. What was your favorite part then? Would you be able to narrow it down?
That is a loaded question in Danny Boyle's prime, man. Damn.
Dude, I honestly,
I
I'm
think-
thinking I honestly don't know
think
for sure.
I think one of my one of the coolest things that I watching it this time, I was like, holy crap, this is so much heavier. And even when I watched it when I was younger, I understood like the AIDS epidemic was so real, but the whole detox montage is beautiful, and then that talk show where
I didn't really
that
pay
is so
attention. I didn't pay
creative,
that. I didn't really pay that much attention to that on earlier
that's
rewatches.
filmmaking. Like I like try to think about that in a novel, and I'm like, I don't know if that could be in the book. I'm like,
No,
it's,
dude, like
it's
the
too
way they-
complex.
That scene, the
like-
way they portray that scene, it's like I don't know, man.
It's him cutting in between the like parents winning this contest for like getting HIV, and like to just that shows his foreboding and like his fear.
And then
that he's
later,
got, like,
it's so-
and he's a drug dealer. And then when he's in the bingo hall, and he's like I'm the luckiest person in the world. In the middle of a pandemic, when I've been a fucking drug user for years, I'm clean. My blood is clean.
Well,
And
even
he's
later when he says it to when he's like,
To
I got
Diane.
tested, and he says it, he's like, I'm clear or whatever. It's like it seems so casual almost, but like from the scene of him going to the detox, you know how much anxiety he has about it. Because like that scene is just such
then
like a
that's-
guilt.
and
It's
then
like just nothing but
the
guilt
guilt.
and anxiety,
Dude.
and
that
like
adds
the
such
music,
a deeper layer.
the like
of guilt.
hardcore pumping like techno music makes me feel on edge. And they got like the stretching of like the room and everything.
Oh, dude! There's so many shots. It's just shots and shots. Like I kind of forgot about that.
Yeah.
Like I even just it's so surreal when he's sitting there and he's like banging his chains against that cabinet. And it's
Yeah,
like, that
and he's
is
like
shot
on.
beautifully.
He's just like he's
Yeah.
just the guilt of like that's like a survivor's guilt thing because it's like he didn't even really his fault, but it's just like Spud's in jail, and I'm not. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And it's
and-
like
yeah.
because I lied about getting clean, and here I am having overdosed.
Yeah.
And that's
that captures it so perfectly. That would be the time he overdosed. He's been on methadone for like whatever a week, and then he goes and he does like his normal hit, and it's like puts him out. It's just it's so good, and that's so subtle. That's what's so great, dude. This movie doesn't exposition dump in a
that's
noticeable
filmmaking,
way.
man. It's
In a
like
noticeable
it
way,
does
right,
it. It
yeah.
really does show and not tell a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Like it really just show the scenes and show the reactions, lets the acting carry the weight of like what he's thinking. Like you don't ever see Renton go like, oh man, this is getting old. I need to like shape up and get this situation. Like you never see that moment. I feel like a lesser movie certainly would have a moment where he's like to Diane or something. It's like, oh, I need to like get out of this lifestyle. But it's like he doesn't say it, but he doesn't need to.
Like,
he does not
that
need to say it.
A conversation is beautifully written when Diane says, drugs are changing, music's changing, life changes, life continues to change. And like that's the scene he needs, and that's basically the scene where he's like, well shit, I really, really, really want to get my shit together. Help me, Diane. But it's like
Or he's
she's
like,
14,
in the future, there's no men, no women, just wankers.
dude,
And I can't
that
wait.
is I wrote that line down in my notes because I was like, that's actually like fucking
Surprisingly
that-
poignant, yeah.
right. And that like that I was like, wow, that's cool. That's very I don't know, ahead of its time. Essentially, it's like it
Honestly, yeah.
to totally portrays a lot of it portrays everything without like a super biased lens, and I don't know, it's hard to do in a movie.
It is hard to do because honestly, it brings it back to the character of Renton, like who I think is just like this feels like a biopic because I feel like this is a real man. Like I feel like this is a real man and his real struggles that he went through, and this is it. Like it feels like that of a snapshot of his life.
I forgot to really delve into it, but it's like Leaving Las Vegas is like the anti this movie, where it like he's such a despicable character, and I appreciate Leaving Las Vegas because he only destroys his own life essentially, and so that's like that at least I don't know, I feel
all the bridges he burned in Leaving Las Vegas have like already happened.
Exactly.
And he's just like kind of a sad mope about it.
Right. But in this, it's like you're seeing the ripple effect of everybody that like.
Well, that's the thing too. That's the thing about like the whole sex tape and everything. It seems like fairly innocuous, and it's just like him being kind of a douchebag, but it's like it has much larger unforeseen consequences that he doesn't say like, "Oh shucks, I'm so guilty about Tommy." Right. Like I caused like his larger rift between him and his girlfriend, which then led to him getting on heroin, which then led to him fucking dying. He doesn't need to say that. It's like it's there in the filmmaking, in the scenes, and in the acting, and I think that's part of what truly makes this such a great film.
Yeah. What would be your favorite scene? I mean, I think it's like I have so many that it's hard to pick, but I really noticed that scene this time with the game show. I was just like, that's so strong. Like when I was younger, I didn't quite understand it.
Because you're really not paying. You're more paying attention to like, Tommy and the baby. The baby's on the ceiling and he's all freaking out, which is also stellar acting by him, where he's just like having a full meltdown, saying to his parents, "I just need one more hit, just one more."
Yeah.
But God, dude, I don't know, honestly, what my favorite scene is. I really think the beginning, just going into the beginning, and then the overdose scene, and then the club scene. Like, there's so many.
The movie.
I really love this movie, though. I forgot how much I loved it.
Well, I need to get a Choose Life tattoo, man.
I would get a Choose Life tattoo, man.
I've been wanting that for years.
Yeah, that's true. You have.
Back in the day, I kind of forgot about it until I was watching this, and I was like, his monologue is so fucking good.
And honestly, the way it's bookended by the monologue at the end, where it's like the Choose Life monologue, where it's like pretty similar. It's a little bit different. But he's got the Choose Life monologue in there, and he's like, why would I ever do that when I have heroin? And then he's like, at the end, he's like, I am choosing life. I'm choosing the big T. And it's like a huge monologue again. But it's perfect to show like from point A to point B, how much his perspective of that monologue has basically changed. But that whole scene, the opening scene with the music, fucking Iggy Pop, and then the cutting and the running and the monologue, and then cutting into like you said, like the introduction of them, and then him like going into the Mother Superior scene of the heroin scene, the first couple heroin scenes where the movie starts true and proper, where they're talking about Sean Connery.
I know, I love that too. That's so like, because like, it's so
just
hard.
real.
We could be talking for hours about
it. Feels so real.
Each character is so deep too. Like Sick Boy, he's pseudo intellectual because he talks about a lot of pop culture, and then he talks about like the philosophy of life, and how like life ends, and it's like, what's the point? And it's like, but he's still like, he's grasping for the things that he wants to give him meaning.
Yep. and then when the baby dies, it's like there is a shift in his character, good. And it's pretty subtle. Like not only just his acting, because they do point out like in Renton's dialogue, like, hey, like, he was never quite the same after that, because, and that's when we all kind of realized it was probably his kid. But it's just like, it's shown, it's never said again, really, but it's like, Sick Boy is not the same. He's not talking about that anymore. He's like very much like a schemer, and like more of like, you can tell he's gone down a step in the ladder into nihilism.
That's his destruction. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's his personal destruction is trying to he can do heroin and get off of it easy, but it's like consuming things like and like taking control of life
Being-
is something that he really tries to do.
Being numb to the things that hurt you, which is
Yeah.
why a lot of people do heroin. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, so. And we can talk about this movie forever.
We really could. It's beautiful.
We're gonna button it up.
Thank you all
If
for
you have not
hanging
seen
out.
it, thank you for listening. I don't know why, but I appreciate that. If you have seen it, obviously, good on you. I don't know what other. If you like this, watch Shallow Grave.
Shallow Grave, really.
It's honestly not like a similar movie in the way that it is, but it's like the filmmaking is slightly similar. It's much more like subdued though, because it's more of like a plotting like thriller. But yeah, it's and then honestly the other big heroin movie that didn't win that is like much more about the despair and is like borderline a horror movie is Requiem for a Dream. But it's like Requiem for a Dream does a lot of the similar, like shows addiction in a really interesting way as well, and is also visually very fascinatingly done.
It is. Yeah. I that's another I was huge into Darren Aronofsky back then too. So
Same.
It's like,
Well, we're
I
the
need
only
to
people
watch
that
again.
we're the only people that liked Mother. So
Mother's so fucking good, dude. I was talking about Mother today at work because I was like, oh, I'm really excited to see Whale.
Yeah.
I'm like super pumped to see Whale. And then I was like, because like Mother was such an outstanding movie, and I just
I'm pretty sure
Aronofsky's
we
so
saw
good.
Mother when you lived here, right?
We
and
did. Mary didn't
Me,
like it.
yeah, me. It was me,
But
you, and
I get
Mary
it.
or something, and we were like,
Yeah.
me and you were like, yeah, buddy. And Mary was like, what the fuck did we just watch? And then we were walking out, and like half the audience was like, that movie was fucking terrible. That sucked.
Yeah.
And me and you were
I
like,
swear, didn't someone
what?
boo or?
Yeah.
I think someone at the end said something like
Yeah,
that. Like,
when
fuck
it
the movie.
ended, like the person
Yeah.
behind us was just like,
Yeah.
like, what? Oh my god, that sucks. You know, like loud,
Yeah.
like.
Right.
And me and you were like, oh my god, whatever. That movie was incredible. I want to watch it again. Actually, I haven't seen Mother.
Right.
I've only seen it the once. So.
Same here.
All right.
It left
That's
an
enough.
impression.
This podcast is already long enough. We're not even talking about Trainspotting anymore. So if you watch Trainspotting, thanks for listening. We're still on the theme of drug movies, and I'm actually really surprised this next movie won. I really didn't think it would. But that's what I like about these polls is sometimes, and honestly, if I would have put Leaving Las Vegas, you're right. I mean, not Leaving Las Vegas. Fear and Loathing, it would have
Fear and
100% won.
Would have
So,
won, yeah.
honestly, and I do want to rewatch that movie, but I'm glad I didn't put it because
No, I haven't seen Scanner Darkly in
it's been forever.
I don't know.
I've seen it like
since
2
theaters,
times.
Probably.
Yeah.
I think theaters last time I saw it.
Yeah, I saw it in theaters, and then I saw it once after that, and I really like it.
Or
I
maybe we watched it in.
I feel like
with David.
I feel like we watched it at the Grudge House was the last time I saw it.
Yeah. I think I was there too. Anyways,
Yeah.
But it's
It's
cool. So there you
underrated
go.
too.
That's what it
I
is.
think it's kind of an
Scanner Darkly.
underrated Linklater movie. But yeah, we're watching
Or
Scanner
is it-
Darkly.
Is it a Scanner Darkly, or just Scanner Darkly?
Yeah, Scanner Darkly.
Scanner Darkly.
Scanner Darkly. Yeah. So we're watching that next week. That's some Linklater, and he does some pretty. That's a pretty trippy movie too. So I feel like it's kind of an underrated. He doesn't
Which is
do
cool, 'cause
those
Linklater's
kind of movies.
not that trippy. Yeah, he doesn't do trippy movies. So
I mean,
I'm
he kind
excited to see
he like not trippy in that way, you know, like I don't
No,
know.
that's right. Yeah, sure. And this was cool, and it's like when Rotoscope kind of came back for a hot minute.
Well,
and then,
because of him.
right. Did he do Waking Life? I
Yeah,
feel
of
like
course.
I was
I was
gonna
gonna say that's
cool.
trippy as fuck, but
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, I was like, Waking Life's dope,
trippy in
but
a different way.
I
Like
couldn't remember
Slacker
if
is different, you know. It's trippy, but it's not like trippy, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, yep, watch Scanner Darkly. We'll be back next week talk about Scanner Darkly, and then I'll probably end the month with like stoner comedies or something like that, or I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
So thank you for listening. Check out the Reddit. Go on there. I apologize to anyone. I have been having technical difficulties, so the website may be a little behind. No, I don't think it is, but and my YouTube listeners, if there's anyone out there, thanks for your patience, and we'll get it. I'll get it all on there. We'll be good.
Yeah. The Patreon has been dabbled in. I went and cleaned it up a little bit, and so you can get on there and get in the Sticker of the Month Club and get part of our Plex and get involved. You guys help us out. We thank all our patrons that exist and are out there doing their thing and rocking their lives. We love you guys. And if you want to call in, feel free to do so with the phone number 801-613-1501.
Very nice.
That's how we do it.
Very nice. Good stuff. So, goodbye.
Yeah. All right. Choose to stop listening to this podcast now.
Choose it.
All right, I stopped.